Hi there, welcome. My name is Karen Plant and I'm on the TIPS team. And today's session is about Pear Deck and student engagement online. This is an intermediate Pear Deck section and we're going to talk about 3 phases of using Pear Deck: ready, set, go. Like I mentioned, my name is Karen Plant and I'm part of the TIPS team with Edmonton Public. You can get a lot of the resources and a variety of documentation to support your transition to online teaching from tips.epsb.ca. Pear Deck is a tool that collects formative assessment data. So we know it's really challenging when students are online to be able to know what they're thinking. In person, in a classroom, we can listen to student conversations, we can peek over their shoulder, but there's definitely challenges in an online environment. Edmonton Public Schools has purchased a premium version of Pear Deck for all staff so that they can use this with students synchronously or asynchronously with online meets or even in-person classes if you're still there with students. If you are new to Pear Deck, here's a really brief overview. peardeck.com has lots of getting started help videos that are small and easy to digest and would be great to get going. Edmonton Public, the TIPS team, has also created a Getting Started with Pear Deck document that are linked in this slideshow. And this slide deck is available in the EPSB Winter Summit agenda, also available on tips.epsb.ca. In Pear Deck, this is a Google Slides add-on. So you can take a pre-existing Google Slides presentation and add interactive content to it. There's different question types as well as interactive content types. So you could add, students could respond to your prompts with text. You could have a multiple choice or a different choice prompt, a number answer. You could embed a website that they could explore in a Pear Deck session. They could draw, which means they could draw Chinese characters, solve math problems, or draw to show their thinking. And draggable. These features you can build using the Pear Deck Slides add-on into your Google Slides presentation, and then when you're ready to engage students, you'll start a Pear Deck session. These are the things that we'll look at today. Getting ready, we'll talk about settings and how you can set your settings to set up students for success for reading support. We'll get set, talking about how you can teach students to use the tools available to them effectively. And when you're ready, you can explore the Pear Deck session yourself. So first, we can start with settings. There's plenty of different settings that are available in Pear Deck. And if you've used Pear Deck so far just in Google Slides, you may not have explored the actual Pear Deck website. So let's go there now. The Pear Deck website is at peardeck.com. What you need to do is log in as a teacher. As an Edmonton Public School staff, like I mentioned, you have premium access to this. We are a Google shop, so we use our G Suite credentials to get in. Once I click teacher login, I can see that I have a crown on the top of my head, meaning I have the premium features. You can see on the top left, we have our home here with lots of learning resources available, some session data that we'll explore later, and then the help files I was referring to with the videos and documentation that can support your further learning. As we get to settings, we need to scroll all the way down, like all the way down, and settings are at the very bottom. When we click on settings, we can see we have some settings that we can manipulate and change. The first one is classroom climate. When students log into your Pear Deck session, you provide them with a code or a link to join your session. They have a chance to show their mood, and this is shown as an emoji. And then at the end of the session, they have an opportunity to provide a thumbs up or a thumbs down for feedback for you. And you can set whether or not you want these available. You could toggle classroom climate completely off, removing the mood and feedback. You can toggle it on and select both mood and feedback. So the start of the session and the end, students are automatically prompted to answer those questions. You don't include them in your slideshow, or you can turn them off. The next feature is the Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader is like Read and Write for Google, but it's Microsoft's version of this. And this actually works within a Pear Deck presentation or a Pear Deck session. So not within Google Slides, but for students to use when they're in the student view participating in a Pear Deck. Now that could be in a teacher-paced lesson that is synchronous or a student-paced lesson that is asynchronous. By toggling the Immersive Reader on, students will see this icon in the bottom right, and any of the text that you've included into your slides can be accessed so that they could read it, they could use a picture dictionary, or even translate it. Turning on Google Classroom integration means that you can quickly invite students from your Google Classroom to Pear Deck sessions, and you could also post takeaways, which will automatically post to the stream. If you don't enable Google Classroom integration, that's still okay. Students will still sign on using their Google account. Student takeaways are the second last setting. If you toggle those on, you can publish a personalized review document for each student. That'll show both the question or engagement opportunity as well as every single other slide in your presentation. Included, though, for individual students then is what they responded to your engagement question. So they have both the blank slide and the engagement they provided. Since this is a Google Doc, it's kept in your Google Drive, organized with the name of each student in the name of the document. So you could even share this in the future. And finally, we suggest that you require student login so you can truly follow up with students so that's not anonymous. When you share responses with the class, Pear Deck automatically removes the name so that the class can discuss answers, but in the teacher dashboard, you can see who responded. Having students sign in helps you follow up with specific students. We are a Google shop, make sure Google selected and then slide to toggle on. And those are the settings in Pear Deck. So that helps us get ready. The Immersive Reader that I mentioned before is a newer feature, so it's in beta. So that means that it may change and shift and grow and get better. In order to utilize these and change readability, we need to teach students how to use that and showcase how to use that. Just like we want to encourage students to use Google Read and Write when they're editing or when they're learning, we need to show them how to access those tools. So we'll talk about how to do that. Another feature we can ready for students to help their learning support is adding audio to slides. This is a new feature in Pear Deck this year. You can record audio right as you're setting up the slideshow from the Pear Deck add-on. You'll have an add audio to slide option, that blue one there, and then a gray box is added to your slide saying audio included. That audio included gray box is a holder for the recording. So you could copy that box to multiple slides so that you don't have to record each slide. And while you could put multiple boxes on a slide, the only thing students will have access to is the first audio recording added to a slide. During a Pear Deck session, whether it's student-paced or teacher-paced, students can access this audio recording. So unlike Immersive Reader, which supports the text that's written on the slide, the audio slides is your voice or another recording, which you can import or upload. Your voice, which could be pronunciation in language classes. It could also be other instructions for students who need that extra support right from your voice. When students are in a Pear Deck session, they'll see the audio button on the bottom right. And if you've enabled Immersive Reader, they'll also see the Immersive Reader button. And when they click the audio included button, they'll be able to see the player and push play as many times as they like. Like I mentioned before, as we get set up in our third phase or our second phase for Pear Deck here, set up for success for students, we want to show them what it means to join a student session and what it looks like and how to use the tools. So I'll show you that at this time. So here I am in my slideshow that I'm presenting. I'm going to click on the Pear Deck add-on, and the Pear Deck add-on will show up within my Google Slides presentation here. This side has lots of functions in it. You can see that this is where we find the Add Audio to Slide button. I can click on Add Audio to Slide and my audio recorder shows up. I can upload audio that I've already loaded onto my computer, or I can start recording. Greetings. This is an audio recording that I've shared with you. If I'm satisfied with it, I can click Save. I can hear it. Greeting. And then I can choose to delete it or add it. Once I've added it to the slides, we can see here's the audio included up here, and I can move this around if I choose and put it wherever. Now, students won't click on it necessarily. In their student view, remember that the audio player will be on the bottom right. So when we start a lesson, we can choose to be student paced or instructor paced. I'm going to click student paced at this time. What happens in the Pear Deck world is it connects my presentation with all of the engagement tools that exist in Pear Deck, creating a session for you to join. The first thing we see is the teacher dashboard. I don't need to see the teacher dashboard right now, but here we are in student paced, and I can provide the information to you so that you can join as well. Now, I'm going to leave this on for 2 weeks after I post this video. So today is November 30th. So for November 30th, for 2 weeks, this will be running in student pace mode. So if you're watching this video later, I encourage you to still join this Pear Deck. It'll still be running. So we could tell students to join in a couple different ways. Because I've enabled classroom integration, I can click Share to Classroom, which will post the link to this session in a Google Classroom. I could copy this link here and I could paste it in our Google Meet chat for students to click on directly, or I can tell them to go to joinpd.com and enter the code TBWQGY. And going to joinpd.com and typing in the code is how I'm going to join my own session. So the join code information I shared with you there. Now I'm going to type into another tab, joinpd.com, and I'm going to join my own session so that I can show to my students. So students see this when they go to joinpd.com. What they need to be able to know is the code, and the code was TBWQGY. So we've typed in the code and we're initializing here. Because I've turned on Classroom Climate, you can see that I'm prompted as a student to let my teacher know how I feel. If I choose skip, my color of my smiley face or sad face will just be black and it won't have a smile or a frown. So we're beginning our journey, and remember that I've set up student paced, so I can toggle between the different slides at my own pace as a student. So this is my student view. So as I go forward, I can see all the slides we've already gone through. Here's my Immersive Reader slide, and I'd love to show you how that works here. So as a student in my student view, I can see the Immersive Reader button on the bottom. I can see this because in my settings, I've turned it on. When I click the Immersive Reader, my slide is transformed into something a bit more accessible. First, we can see some settings available. We have the play button on the bottom, which looks familiar, and a variety of settings in the top right. The things that show up in this screen are things I've typed into the slide. So what won't be accessible using Immersive Reader is images or any of the interactive content.
Set up reading support Immersive Reader integration beta. Enabling your Pear Deck settings text read aloud.
I can change some settings for the text. I can change the speed, so I can slow it down or speed it up, and I can choose the kind of voice I'd like. Also, in our options on the top right, I can change some text preferences. So I can change the font if I prefer. I can increase the spacing or increase the text size. In my grammar options, I can turn on some syllables if that supports my pronunciation. I can even have some parts of speech automatically highlighted by toggling them on. Remember though that this is set by students. So the individual student needs to engage in these activities. We can't do this for students. And finally, under reading preferences, I can change my line focus so that as we read, we can have more focus there, or I can turn it off. And also, if I have Picture Dictionary loaded, it'll access the images included in BoardMaker. Again, if I'd like to change my language, I can choose a different language. I am going to choose Canadian French, and I can go by word or document. And then if I choose that, I have the opportunity to translate.
Illustrations.
Oh, sorry. When I toggled on document, you can see that even the text changes here. So I can switch back to the original if I choose, and then back to the French. So this is an automatic activity. This isn't vetted or anything. It's just from my text. And then I can listen to it.
Mise en place de l'intégration immersive des lecteurs, bêta activée dans vos paramètres Pear Deck texte lu à haut.
So when I scroll up here,
Haute voix texte traduit dans différentes langues.
I'm still having highlighted the different words that are being spoken. When I toggle back to my original, I talked about the picture dictionary there. I can click on a word, and when I click on it, I have a chance to hear it. And if I've translated it, I can hear it in both languages, as well as have a picture. A picture isn't available for every single image, just the ones that are already loaded into BoardMaker, which isn't something the student needs to set up, or you. This is simply what the tool accesses. So you can see when we have a synonym, we have a variety of different images available for the student to use.
Deck. Deck. Languages. Langue.
So there's plenty of options there. If I want to get out of the Immersive Reader as a student, I just have to exit by using the back arrow. So that's what the Immersive Reader looks like. Maybe your students are ready for that. Maybe they aren't, but that's definitely up to you and the student. Remember, I'd mentioned that we could insert audio to slides. Now that I'm in the student viewer, I have included audio on this slide, and here it shows up on the bottom. When I click on it, I can see the player here, and I can push play when I'm ready. You could add language support or instructions for students who don't have the skills to read the slide. I can pause and play as many times as I want. And that it's shown up the audio support because I, in my setting up, have included audio. So we are in the student view right now, and I am sharing the student view with you. We can see that again, because I've toggled audio on, when I go between slides, if the audio is toggled on, we can see that there's also audio on this slide, which I included when I was presenting already. So that is our student view. When I go back to my Pear Deck session, I'm going to continue to talk about different ways that we can get set up for success. Once a session is over, as I've mentioned before, the takeaways can be a very powerful part of communicating both with students about their learning and with parents or guardians. Student takeaways, when published, have the entire presentation with student responses alongside the questions prompted, including any other slides that you had in the presentation. Because they're saved in your Google Drive and shared with editing rights to each individual, you can find them later. So if you needed to have a tough conversation with a parent about a student's engagement online, you could access one of these takeaways and showcase what the student is doing during the session. Now that can be very powerful for the student as they take their responses away, and they could use them to review. They could tag you in comments. They can edit this because it is their document. So there may be power in sharing with students how to use this tool to review and recall information. This is an example of what a student takeaway looks like in a drawing slide. So it would say slide 15 is this graph, and that would be the prompt. And then the student's response is right next to it, formatted in the Google Doc, automatically created with a line that the student has drawn. Some teachers have mentioned that in a review, when students are reviewing the document, it's hard to know the right answer. So thanks to Joe Garrick, one of his tips with his K&E students that he uses when using Pear Deck is he includes the key on the slide after in teacher-led sessions. And some teachers have mentioned that they include a key in the last slide so students can check their answers after the session is over, and it'll also be part of their student takeaways. If you didn't publish takeaways and you want to continue to do that after the session is ended, you certainly can when reviewing sessions. I'm going to move over to my Pear Deck presentation and talk about that while I exit from here. So in the Pear Deck add-on, on the right-hand side, we have the option to access help resources right from there. We have to use the 3 lines, the main menu there, to access the help resources. You can publish and share your lessons worldwide if you're excited about that. You can toggle students joining right here, which we encourage you to toggle on, and then review sessions is accessible here. This takes you to the same place as going to peardeck.com and then selecting sessions from the top left. The only sessions you can see in your recent activities are the sessions from the last 30 days, or the last 30 sessions. After 30 days, then they're archived. You can still access them from the archive. From here, we can see sessions that are still live and sessions that have been closed. Some of my sessions that are running today are still in student paced mode, and that's on purpose. From the 3-dot menu, I'm going to choose one that's closed. I can choose to reopen the session. So perhaps I've closed a session, a teacher-directed one, and now it's the next day and I'd like to reopen it and re-engage students. Once they rejoin, they don't lose any of their progress. You don't lose any of their information. They just rejoin a session already. You could rename the session so that it's easier to find. You can archive the session to get it off this main page. And then, as I mentioned, you can then create takeaways. By clicking that button, you have the option of sharing takeaways with students. Automatically, this would be shared and created for students, and automatically they can be notified of that. So that could be important to set up if you find that valuable. Also part of that menu there in the review sessions option is export to spreadsheet. If we export to spreadsheet, then we have a chance to have a copy of all of the student responses that are able to be included in a spreadsheet. So these would be text responses, multiple choice or choice questions, as well as numerical responses. Drawing and draggable responses don't go into spreadsheets, so that could be challenging to include because they're not exported easily. By exporting to spreadsheet, we can keep all of the student responses all in one spot, or we could even auto-grade our responses. We could set ourselves up for success using Pear Deck by thinking about what we want to do with the feedback we receive from students in order to support their learning. If we want to provide them immediate feedback for recall, then we can use Flubaroo, which is a Google Sheets add-on. That is what was used to mark the MIPI if you did that digitally. That you can add that to your Google Sheet, run the Flubaroo add-on, and then provide students feedback for right or wrong answers that way. There's not a way to auto-grade within Pear Deck itself, though. This tool is designed to be dynamic, teacher-directed, and more on the fly in that regard. So at last, in this session, if you're watching it 2 weeks after November 30th, 2020, you have a chance to go and explore this student-paced session. So to explore the question types, use the Immersive Reader, listen to the embedded audio. Once I end the session, review the takeaway that'll be emailed to you, and then think about what are the ways in which you can use this tool with your students. I'm going to go back to my student-paced. So this is my teacher view that I would put on the projector or share in the Google Meet. As I scroll through, I can see where any student is from this view. I could also open the teacher dashboard, and if I'm in a teacher paced, but not from a student paced. So note that when I use the 3 dots, I don't have a teacher dashboard here because I don't need one, because right from this view as a teacher, I can see where students are, what slide they're on. Now I don't have any students participating with me except me. So I scroll down and I can see when I click on this, the students on that slide is me, Karen Plant. And if you had multiple students, you could see what slide each student was on. And then when you were looking and clicking around, you could also see their responses. So I'm going to scroll down to a response question. So here's a question in which I have engaged for a response. So I'm going to switch to my student view. Here I am in my student view. I know it's a student view because I don't see all the slides along the left-hand side. I only see the slide that I'm on. And as I scroll through, we've seen some of these slides. We've talked about them. And here I am at the engagement question. I'm asked by my teacher to drag the flag to indicate the place of the nucleus. Here's my flag available for me, and I can drag it to where I think the nucleus is. It gives me instructions in my student view for what to do along the bottom. Now I'm going to switch back to my teacher view. So here I am, and we can see that Karen is on this slide, and this is Karen's response. If there was more than one person responding, I could hover over their flag and I could see who responded what, and I could follow up with that student if their flag maybe was in a spot that I was concerned about. Back to my student view. Note that there's a check mark along the bottom there, and in other slides along the bottom they don't have a check mark. This check mark indicates that I have engaged in this response question that I needed to. Also note that I have the Immersive Reader available to me because there's text on this slide. This is a drawing question. My teacher's asking me to draw anywhere on the slide. I'm asked to draw a blue arrow to represent the direction of water transport and a yellow arrow to represent the direction of sugar transport. This slide is courtesy of our CLS consultants that are supporting the use of Pear Deck for student engagement for different curricular objectives. And you can check out the curriculum and learning support team's pop-up PL by searching on Connect. So you can see I got a whole palette of colors along the bottom. I have different tools I can use to draw and create a drawing. Note that there is a text tool available. So if you want students to also explain their drawing, they don't need to use their mouse to do the text writing. So I know that water transport comes from the roots. So I'm going to draw a line up like that. And then I'm going to use my yellow arrow to know that sugar is made in the leaves and it needs to go to the roots so that everybody can eat. And there we go. When I toggle back to my teacher view, I can see that here is me. I'm on this slide and I can see the drawings here. If I change the layout to grid view, I'd be able to see all of my students and what they'd have drawn. And if I want to overlay my whole class, I can click the overlay and everyone's drawing will overlay on top of each other. There's probably only certain kinds of drawing questions where that makes sense, specifically graphing perhaps. So there's a variety of different ways to know. I can also know how many students are participating in this session at one time, so you can see how many folks are joining you along your journey of learning. Switching back to my student view, I see a check mark on the bottom. That check mark indicates I have, in fact, done the task on there somehow. This is another question about drawing, and it's asking to formulate a mathematical formula to solve a problem. You can see that it's not checked off yet. It just has the drawing icon there. So I can pick it and I can change the size if I want to. An energy formula that can be used to calculate. So I can write down things I think make sense. This is a Science 10 example. And talk about potential energy, and I can solve as I see fit. I could also include a text box so that I can type. By sharing this information with my teacher, I can see I have a check mark because I've engaged on this slide. Back to my teacher view. I can see there is one student on this slide. Guess what? It's me. Here is my response. I'm in grid layout. I can make them bigger by being in list layout. Oh, Karen doesn't know. So what I can do is use this little feedback tool here. Here's a feedback tool. This is a beta feature of Pear Deck, and I can leave feedback and say, maybe stay after class, and I can help. Or I could provide any kind of feedback that is requested. When I send the feedback, I can either add more or wait. Note that the little speech bubble is grayed in on my teacher view, and on my student view, I have a little pop-up. It says you have new feedback, and see the immersive readers on the bottom right, and then the feedback tool exists there too. So that feedback tool will allow me to click in as a student and see what slide, what the feedback is, and then let my teacher know I did in fact read that. So then my notification goes away. Teacher feedback is only accessible in the Pear Deck session. It's not accessible anywhere outside. It's only about the live experience, whether the live experience is student-paced or teacher-paced. So this feature is in beta, and it may be helpful to have the teacher feedback be part of the student takeaways, but that's not the case now. So you can use teacher feedback as you see fit whenever you require. I'm still in my student view, and then I have a short answer question. Here I'm asking you as the participants, do you have tidbits of information or experience that you could share with other people that we could include in some publications in the future? Please answer here, and this is a text response, and you can add lots of text if you choose. Note along the bottom that the text slide is indicated here, and because I haven't typed anything, nothing's checked off. So I'll let you know, I have plenty of tips, but I don't currently teach students, and I know that there's a wealth of knowledge out there from other online teachers, and we'd really love to tap into that. So please do share with us. I haven't hit enter, I'm just typing, and then from my teacher tab, back in my teacher view of this student paste, I can see that there's one person that's joining here. I'm going to leave my sharing of this screen and let you know that you can see the typing that happens from students live. So you can see them edit. You can see them write, and you can see what they're adding. So if you are asking students to do a response to a reading or a response to thought, write a paragraph, etc., you can see them as they come in, akin to peeking over their shoulder. So I encourage you to participate and join those sessions, the join code being TBWQGY, which I will put in a variety of places. And let me know what you think. When I'm presenting this, and this is my Google slideshow presentation, I'm not in a Pear Deck shot right now. It looks fairly similar, of course, because I've created it, but I don't have any of the features that Pear Deck would share with me. And so we can share these Google Slide presentations with other educators so that they too can have Pear Deck sessions with their students. The information from the students doesn't get mixed up because a different teacher created a different session at a different time. The last thing that I'd love to share with you is the last question here. I'm in the student view, and here's the Pear Deck poll. When I set up this choice question in Pear Deck, I typed in the responses available. And what I did additionally is typed them into the slide. This was duplicate work, but the reason I did that was so that the immersive reader would be something that could work for students. Remember that the immersive reader wouldn't read the things along the side, the student engagement pieces, but does make accessible whatever text is on the slide. So when I open the immersive reader, the only thing I have access to is the slides. Notice that this is the second time I've accessed the immersive reader while I've been a student, and my settings about French aren't here anymore. Every slide is a different experience. So I can go to reading preferences and I can change the language, and I'll, for example, pick French Canadian. I can have the by word so that when I hover over a word, I can see its translation, and I can also translate the whole document And again, this is through AI. This isn't through a human's brain. So there definitely are differences. We know that. This may be supportive for students to go back to their mother tongue so that they can figure out a few more things on their own. So then when we go back, we weren't accessing these here. We were accessing the text on the slide. I do hang out with Pear Deck every day, so that's going to be my response. And we can see check mark, I'm good. When I get to the end, I know I'm at the end because I don't have any more forwards. As a student, because I'm in student paced, I don't need to do anything any further. I don't need to sign out. I don't need to ask my teacher anything. I could simply close the tab. If I accidentally close the tab, though, note that a student can rejoin a live session as long as it's live at any time, and all of the responses that they've already inputted are saved. And that's different than Google Forms. In a Google form, if you don't hit submit, then you lose all the work that you've done. So that might be something to consider. So I appreciate you participating in this session, Ready, Set, Go with Pear Deck. My name is Karen Plant, and you can email me at karen.plant@epsb.ca. You can check out the TIPS website at tips.epsb.ca. And if you're an online teacher, don't forget that you can go to the online teacher FAQ in Connect and get lots of your questions answered. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I appreciate your time and enjoy using Pear Deck.